Okay, we're getting a lot of emails on the outsourcing issue because we had one day we had Lou Dobbs on, and he thinks that Republicans ought to start paying attention to job losses. And then we have Jim Glassman on, who, along with Larry Kudlow and a lot of other people on the Wall Street Journal editorial page, say there's short-term pain, long-term gain for an economy that is open and actively engaged in global trade, and that software jobs, biotech jobs, other types of jobs are replacing the traditional manufacturing and even some of these IT jobs that are being outsourced to places like India. Lots of emails. Dear Laura, here's the way I see it. Person A and Person B have the exact same skills, but Person A works in the United States. Person B works in India. An American corporation will look at the fair U.S.-based wage for Person A, then starts backing out the FICA tax, 15% health care, workers' comp, OSHA costs, potential liability from junk lawsuits regarding environmental issues, sexual harassment issues, repetitive motion injuries, etc. It's no contest. The federal government, and I'll add trial lawyers in there, also causes U.S. workers' costs to be substantially higher for the American. Not through the fault of that American, however. I don't know how to level the playing field any better either. That's from Jim Smyers out in Glen Allen, Virginia. Well, a lot of people are echoing that sentiment. 800-876-4123 on the program, 876-4123. Dear Laura, it's not only manufacturing jobs that are being outsourced, as you said. I work in the software development industry, and programming jobs are also being outsourced, just as IT and customer service jobs are as well. It is happening at my company, and I know that it is happening in other companies. It seems everything is being looked at for outsourcing these days. That's Timothy from August Technology Company. I don't know where that is, but and other people saying, look, this is what it is like to have a shifting economy in a very competitive global marketplace. Great show. I appreciate having Lou Dobbs talking about job outsourcing, and this is something I read a little bit earlier. History is on the side of those quote-unquote evil protectionists willing to conserve U.S. jobs. There's a very scary transition occurring now. Lower-paying manufacturing jobs have already been outsourced. Now the business elites are outsourcing high-paying tech jobs. Our middle class is being exported, and as Lou Dobbs has said time and again, we all care about middle-class families in places like India, but we also care more about the U.S. middle class, of which I'm a part, Laura. I make a good living. What good does it do to the U.S. economy and U.S. innovation if my job, a computer programmer, as well as thousands of other high-paid programmers like me, have our jobs exported and our wages reduced? The first thing I'll do is stop sending my money to the RNC if that continues to happen. Please stay on this topic. We'll see how this all plays out. Let's go to Ted. Ted's listening in Philly. Ted, what do you think? Mixed substance, humor, media bias, culture, politics? What do you think?
It's hard for me to believe you're even asking a question. Absolutely keep it humor. No one can, if who's ever heard your show, or seen you on Chris Matthews or any other shows can question your public policy chops. The political reality is top side. But we absolutely need the humor.
I have to laugh, Ted, to do this every day, because I'm telling you something. If you go on the radio for 3 hours a day and just get on a soapbox and just be on the soapbox for 3 hours a day, either reading RNC talking points, which I won't do, so don't bother sending them to me, or just saying this is my view, this is my view, this is my view on the economy or politics, that's tedious. You got to hear from the people. If people in North Carolina who are conservatives are worried about their jobs, I'm going to open this debate up. I'm not going to buy these issues lock, stock, and barrel. And if I think John Kerry sounds like Beldar the Conehead, I'm going to say that too. Because this is going to be a long campaign season.
We come from France.
And he comes from France too, John France Kerry. Hey, thanks, Ted. I appreciate the call. 800-876-4123. Let's go to Bob, listening in Phoenix on the Patriot. Bob, what is it, like 100 degrees there now? You guys have a little few balmy temperatures.
Not yet. It's only 99.
Oh, good. Excellent. Terrific.
I'm still laughing over Bildar. I had to call in because I felt like my comedy was threatened. Don't take away the laugh. I love him.
Well, see, because we get emails from people who say, "Oh, Laura, you guys get so juvenile at times. Keep it." And I forward these emails around to Lee and Matt, and they just start laughing. Like we do more substance on our show than most shows combined. Thank you very much.
What kind of a person actually doesn't want one laugh in 3 hours? Who wants to be around that person or cater to that person?
I have no idea.
Who wants to be around a person who doesn't want to laugh at all. You know, it's just, I don't know. We love Phoenix, too. We got to get back to Phoenix. Phoenix is so much fun. 800-876-4123. Ike, listening in D.C. very patiently, AM 570. Ike, do you have a suggestion to the John Kerry campaign theme song contest?
Well, I certainly do. My suggestion is Running on Empty.
It was an SNL skit, so I don't think they did.
I guess they didn't have a theme song. Darn. Bildar needs a theme song.
I listen to Kerry, and I always think of Byrd.
So do I.
Every time I hear him. Maybe.
Bring it on. Bring it on now. We are just terrible. Tom Hayden, former, was he boyfriend? Was he married to Jane Fonda? Whatever. Who knows?
It's hard to keep count.
I don't know. Well, he's all upset because Kerry is attempting to distance himself from Jane Fonda. Senator Kerry should not try to distance himself from Jane Fonda, who, quote, was neither wrong nor unconscionable in what she said and did in North Vietnam, says Tom Hayden, one of Fonda's ex-husbands. This is in the great section of the Washington Times put together by Greg Pierce called Inside Politics. And we love Greg Pierce, and John McCaslin's great, too, in his column in the Washington Times. Mr. Hayden, of course, remember he led the Students for a Democratic Society back in the 60s and all the really militant protests. He cited a 2001 Meet the Press appearance where Kerry said that he had committed atrocities during his 5-month tour in Vietnam. Mr. Kerry specifically took responsibility for shooting in free fire zones, search and destroy missions, and burning villages. Mr. Hayden notes in the latest issue of The Nation. Was that? I don't even remember that by John Kerry. I don't remember that appearance in Meet the Press. The attempted smearing of Kerry through the Fonda connection is a Republican attempt to suppress an honest reopening of our unfinished exploration.
It's complete hogwash.
He's actually saying that we haven't explored Vietnam sufficiently. Tom Hayden thinks we need to go back to Vietnam. This is what I'm talking about with the Democrats. They keep getting stuck in the Vietnam rut.
They're trying to make it look like Kerry isn't patriotic. How can you impugn the patriotism of any Vietnam veteran?
Well, she did impugn the patriotism of Vietnam soldiers when she hung out in North Vietnam with the Viet Cong. What is she saying? How can you? First of all, nobody's impugning John Kerry's patriotism. They keep putting up these paper tigers. The Democrats, you're impugning our patriotism. No, we just think you're wrong. Like hogwash. Yeah, you're hogwash. And she's just got to go away now. Well, we thought Jane Fonda had gone away, and now she's doing the vagina monologues, and she's in touch with her inner self, so to speak. And she's doing that. And now Tom Hayden is, don't pick on my old Jane. This is just, they just never go away, these old 60s radicals, right?
Well, these were their best days, and they just can't believe they're behind them.
Yeah, glory days have passed you by, glory days. Dear Laura, waking up with a sore throat is not fun at all. I am not a doctor, but my wife and I had the same occasional problem years ago. This began when we were in our 30s, as I assume you are. Laura, wear a nightcap when you sleep, when it is not warm. This works. Many times when not wearing a nightcap, I would wake up with a rough throat at, say, 3 a.m. I would put the cap on, and by get-up time, I was back to normal. It really works. That's from Joe Vogel. When we come back, Jon Voight, the lie of the day, and a lot more to get to about the secular absolutionists out there. Who are they? I remember the aggressive secularists absolutely exposed. We're going to continue to do that on a daily basis. New phone calls. You can just give input on anything you read about the program. We're opening up. You think we do too much serious stuff? Tell us. Too much funny stuff? Tell us, and then we'll laugh at you. The first people feel like the entertainment industry is out to get them. Look at these comments by Bill Maher.
I think religion is a neurological disorder, and so I think anyone who believes in this stuff is, it's like...
Did you hear this? What did he want to say?
It's like...
Stupid. We're stupid. Oh, Bill Maher, he's the enlightened one.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
No, So a bunch of people have suggested the French national anthem. That's pretty funny, but maybe that's a little too. And don't call in and say you're so vain, okay? That is just, we don't want you're so vain. That's too obvious. And do not suggest George Harrison's tax man. Okay, that is too obvious. We are in We are a show of the people, for the people, by the people. And we, the people, are smarter than that. Let's go to Joe down in Atlanta. Joe, what are you doing, my friend?
Fantastic, Laura. Now, without question, not only do you need to keep it entertaining, but in complimenting you, I might even get myself in a little bit of trouble. I've certainly found out just throughout my life, whether it's, friends or whether it's comedians or talk show hosts, for the most part, I honestly think that guys are funnier and usually have a better sense of humor than women, but you've been putting that, you've been certainly shooting down that theory. You're an entertaining female, and it's nice to actually listen to somebody of the opposite gender who has the same kind of sense of humor that I do. So you're not only informative, but you're entertaining, and you definitely need to make some more over-under references. I know you've all of a sudden you've cut down on them all of a sudden.
No, we continue to bet. We have a running bet on how long Dennis Miller's show is gonna. What's the over-under in Vegas on that? We got to get the line on
3
that.
months.
3 months. Well, it's just painful to watch that show. I love Dennis Miller, but this is just. It's scary. Huh? Anyway, Joe, I appreciate the call. And if you use the word gender, as in the other gender, one more time, I'm going to come through the phone lines at you. No, we like Joe. Joe's listening in Atlanta. It is true that male comics are just funnier than female.
Name me the great female comics on one hand in history.
Lily Tomlin, Gilda Radner. Margaret Cho is awful.
Don't say Ellen.
You're finished.
Ellen. It's not, why is that? I don't know why that is.
Maybe it's the audience, too. Maybe the audience isn't ready for
Maybe the audience isn't ready.
Did you ever think Roseanne was funny?
I think she is just so reprehensible on so many levels. But maybe I've never seen her stand up.
She had a good stand-up act, and her show was funny.
When she was just doing the housewife routine, when she was just a fat housewife.
I thought she was pretty funny back then.
And she used to call herself a fat housewife.
Yep.
And that's why it was partly funny, too.
Self-deprecation is key.
But then she became just kind of nasty and political. And when they become political, they just become...
She morphed into Rosie O'Donnell. They sort of seem like the same person.
I always get them mixed up, Rosie and Roseanne. I still get them mixed up. It's
Roseanne
weird.
O'Donnell.
One likes men, one likes women, but they're both repulsive.
Jon Voight. Jon Voight on Scarborough Country on MSNBC. Sometimes Lee just brings it all into focus for me. Jon Voight, who starred in a lot of great movies, right? Midnight Cowboy, Runaway Train.
Yeah, Tomb Raider.
Coming Home.
Pearl Harbor.
He was in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, Anaconda.
Anaconda?
Yeah,
he was an anaconda?
Oh, yeah.
Yikes.
Times are tight for John. He should just patch up his relationship with his daughter, who he's not talking to in Trent.
Yeah, and stop talking about politics. So he's on with Scarborough, and he's talking about the Mel Gibson movie and all of that. And I just, first of all, why do we care about Jon Voight?
There are these rapid moments throughout the film of people turning into devils. And they're always connected to the Jewish people.
No, it's not. I've seen the film twice.
That reminded me of the way Hitler, in his films on the Jews, created this uproar against the Jews.
What? First of all, the devil figure, it looks like Dobby from Lord of the Rings. I actually didn't like the devil figure that much, but connected to the Jews, no one else that I know who's seen this film, and I know dozens and dozens of people who've seen this film, has that connection.
You think Mel Gibson's actually using Nazi-style propaganda?
Well, let me say, I don't want to. It's clear in the film. It's a dangerous thing to do.
Oh yeah.
Hitler would use rats coming into a neighborhood. Then he would intercut that with Jewish stereotypes, and he built the Holocaust on that stuff.
Oh, I've got to say, of all the things that have been said, and there have been a lot of nasty, horrible things that have been said about this film, Jon Voight took it to a new level on Scarborough Country. And Scarborough was pretty tough on him. I would have been even tougher, I think. Scarborough, I would have just said, I would have taken his mic off and said, you can't say these irresponsible things on my show. Have something to back it up. 800-876-4123.
Melly Mellow Restaurant on Lower Madison Avenue offers truly original cuisine that is unmatched in preparation.
Turning the whole nation against the Jews.
First of all, Matt and Lee have not seen The Passion. You both have to go see The Passion, okay? When you see the film, you will think that Jon Voight, that was Jon Voight on Scarborough Country, that the actor Jon Voight is totally off his rocker there. How is the devil connected to the Jews in this film. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Jews, okay? There were Jews weeping for the crucifixion, and as everyone knows who's a Christian, Jesus died for all of our sins because of the fall of man, because of our sins, our collective sins. It was preordained in the Old Testament. If you're a Christian, you believe it. But the Jews, it's so stupid. Jon Voight, unbelievable dope. And we have an elite alert on our hands.
Learning. Many people have talked about this in different ways, but you have to understand that's a serious charge, and I have a little bit more understanding, perhaps, than most. Not only because of my Catholic background, but because I'm a person who tells stories in cinema as well.
Yeah, Jack and the Beanstalk. That was a great story. That was good work.
Classic.
That Anaconda story.
Yeah, you really told a story in Anaconda that stayed with us throughout cinematic history. He is just... And that brings us to, of course, the lie of the day.
Anti-Semitism that is being stimulated by this film.
A new wave of anti-Semitism is being stimulated by this film. Where? Where is the anti-Semitism?
In his mind.
And where is your daughter? Fix your family situation before you say stupid things about Mel Gibson's film.
Don't get too carried away, though, because he did do The Champ. I mean, he was in The Champ.
I love that.
One of your favorites.
Oh, I love The Champ. I cried. Ricky Schroeder. Oh, I bawled in that movie. He was adorable. He's a good actor. He's turned into a good actor. Good family man, too. I think he has like 6 or 7 kids, Ricky Schroeder. Let's go to... Why don't I make that voice? Let's go to David listening out in L.A. Carolina. David, all my friends in L.A., and we're going to get out there. We're hoping to get out there sometime in May to do a left coast sweep. But all my friends in L.A., David, are saying that they're practically driving off the road because of all the billboards up all over town. With, I guess my mug is up on the billboard for KRLA.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We see it all over the place. It's pretty cool.
Someone said I look like that male comic, David, what's his spade? Someone said, I saw the billboard of you.
Ouch.
Someone said I saw the billboards of you up in L.A. I can't believe David Spade is hosting your show. I laughed.
Well, they didn't say you look like Carrot Top.
Yeah, at least I didn't look like Carrot Top. I think I look okay in those photos. Anyway, hey, David, what's going on? Thanks.
Okay, well, listen, I do stand up here in Los Angeles, and you're right about the female comics. Actually, when a lot of the times when they go on stage, you can see the audience member just kind of like squirming, like, oh my God, when's your 5 minutes going to be up? They're just, a lot of times the female comics, they end up talking about their private parts, their I mean, no, what I'm saying is that a lot of times guys can't relate to a lot of this kind of stuff, but a lot of the guys obviously have a different slant on things. So when the girls go up there, they either have to be really slutty or they're trying to be really intellectual. And also, too, a lot of times if the girl is very good looking, nobody's paying attention to what she's saying. So it's very hard for her to go up there.
You know who I think is very unfunny and very filthy, I mean beyond filthy, is Margaret Cho. I think she is so lame as a comic. I just think she's terrible.
Factor involved. A lot of times they have to do that just to get the point across because there's like that extra hurdle they have to go over to get things across to the audience. There's no reason women can't be funny out there, but I think they're trying to be like men. And the way you be a fun female comic is just be a woman. Be a woman and tease men and tease women. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's that difficult. Let's go to Eric listening in Fort Lauderdale on WFLL. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Laura. I'm really surprised and disappointed that you would speak about Jon Voight in the terms that you have. And I'll say that because he's far from the first person who has enunciated those specific fears of race. And as a Jew, I think it's very unfair for Christians to tell us what we should be concerned about regarding anti-Semitism. There's a long history of it. Obviously, there's been intertrained in black communities in Europe where passion plays have been performed, and anti-Semitism has come about in the vulgarest of terms. And
Eric, where do you think, I know where you're going on this, but let's talk about the new waves of anti-Semitism that Jon Voight said are being created. He didn't say that he thinks it's anti-Semitic, which is his opinion, and that's fine. He said waves of anti-Semitism are being created by the film.
Perhaps they are, perhaps they're not.
Where's the evidence of that, Eric? Eric, where's the evidence of that?
Well, then where is the evidence that we should continue on with our strikes and threats, with terror? There's nothing happening today.
Eric, that is completely, that's not an analogy that works. Eric, the thing that I think is frustrating to a lot of folks out there, and I think it cuts across religious lines, is that the most ardent defenders of the Jewish people, and Israel in particular, have been Christians, much frankly to their political detriment in many parts of the world. And people have different opinions about all movies, and that's fine. It's probably not the best movie made. It's not the worst movie made. It's a movie. But the idea that our country is is on the verge of exploding into anti-Semitism because of this film, I think flies into the face of what people of all faiths have felt for such a long time, which is that faith is under attack in this country. Christians believe that people of faith, not just their faith, but all faiths are under attack. And the secular culture and its aggressive secular absolutism, which has been really, I think, the biggest threat to Jews around the world. And you see that in Europe. You're citing the case of Europe. And Eric, you should look at this piece in today's Wall Street Journal called Secular Absolutism, because it addresses some of these issues that we've been talking about, specifically about anti-Semitism and about what the attack on faith has meant to this country and so many countries around the world. Secular absolutism is becoming the most potent religious force in the United States. Just ask the Boy Scouts and Catholic Charities, which both fell afoul of secular orthodoxy and then found judges willing to punish them for it. Let's start with Catholic Charities. This is an issue we talked about last week on the show with our guest. The California Supreme Court just ruled that social services arm of the Roman Catholic Church must include contraceptives coverage to women as part of any prescription drug benefit it extends to employees. When Catholic Charities insisted that as an avowedly Catholic organization, it fit the religious exemption provided by the law in question, the court simply said it was not a religious organization. Catholic Charities? Leave aside the irony that all of America's Catholic institutions, Catholic Charities is arguably the most liberal and sympathetic to secular crusades. Even that didn't protect them. If the state can order a Catholic organization to include contraceptive coverage as part of its health benefits or drop all drug coverage, it's not hard to see where this is leading. This is what passes for civil liberties today. Compare this ruling with what's going on with the Boy Scouts. Yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court turned down the Boy Scouts' appeal of a Connecticut decision to kick them off the list of charities on its state worker voluntary donation plan. Meanwhile, the ACLU has routed the Scouts in San Diego. In a settlement reached earlier this year with the ACLU, San Diego agreed to revoke the Scouts' lease for public campgrounds, where the Scouts have had a presence since 1918 and a formal lease since 1957. The city also agreed to pay the ACLU a whopping $950,000 for its efforts. The Boy Scouts are suing, and they will not actually be evicted until the courts have ruled and all the outstanding issues in the litigation has been settled. But their opponents cite previous briefs in which the Scouts used the words religious organization to describe themselves as an association of believers and explain why they could not admit atheists. Never mind that by this broad definition, the Continental Congress that signed the Declaration of Independence would be a religious organization. Twisting these words, the ACLU contends that leasing the Scouts' public lands is tantamount to the public establishment of religion. Think about that. We're supposed to believe now that the founders believed a federal establishment of religion would be achieved by just leasing public lands to an organization like the Boy Scouts that has some basic religious tenets at its foundation. Never mind that the Boy Scouts have not discriminated against or even been accused of discriminating against anyone who has sought to use the campgrounds. Their real crime is to have won the Supreme Court case involving their First Amendment right not to admit openly homosexual scoutmasters. Ever since, there has been a liberal jihad that has been launched to strip them of any public association. As another federal judge put it in the Connecticut case that the Supreme Courts have refused to hear, the Scouts, quote, pay a price for exercising their First Amendment rights. What's going on here is an effort by liberal activists and their judiciary enablers to turn one set of personal mores into a public orthodoxy from which there can be no dissent, even if it means trampling the First Amendment. Any voluntary association that doesn't comply will be driven from the American public square. Meet the new face of intolerance. And I think that really, that editorial and what it's all about crosses into this discussion of the passion. Because now you can't, if you're a Christian, make a film about the New Testament. If you do, you have to make it a particular way. You have to film it in a particular way. You have to have the dialogue work in a particular way if you happen to be doing a movie about the New Testament. That's the new litmus test in Hollywood.
Jon Voight should be ashamed of himself.
It's one thing having an opinion on something. It's another thing to say that this film has caused a new wave of anti-Semitism. That is a lie, and that is an insult to everything that this country has been about.
If I speak out against it and I call for, if I ask people all people to understand that all people who understand the true meaning of Christ and love to reject this film.
Just hate Mel Gibson, apparently.
Because it's certainly a new torch of anti-Semitism. I'll seem like a person who is, trying to stop a train with a stick. But that's what I feel.
Jon Voight on Scarborough Country. That was disturbing. I'm telling you, I just can't. And he's a Catholic. Greg, listening in Burbank out in KRLA land, and he's a Catholic. Greg, what can we say? I mean, this is Jon Voight starting a new torch of anti-Semitism. My blood is boiling.
He's giving all us real Catholics a bad name, and I can add that he doesn't speak for us. And in regards to the humor content of your program, keep it in there. Remember what Herman Munster says. When you drink Bill Woodfellow, you only get in trouble with stupid folk.
We're using the music just for you. Oh, it's great. I love it. Let's go to Paul listening in D.C. briefly on 570.
I want to say, first of all, do keep the humor in as well. It's what makes the show great, and if we can't laugh at that. And certainly if we can't laugh at the Democrats, what are we going to do, move to Paris with Alice Baldwin?
Absolutely.
For the whole thing about the passion and everybody complaining, it's totally part and parcel with the whole diversity issue. When I was in grad school, I was a graduate assistant in a residence hall, and we were required to have the resident assistants have programs on Kwanzaa, on Hanukkah, on, you name it. You got a holiday, we did something on it, unless it was Christmas. Absolutely no Christmas, no Easter was permitted. We couldn't let Maranatha groups come in, nothing Christian. And, it's just a matter of suppress the majority because it's going to offend someone.
Well, that's the mantra of the PC crowd. Let's go to Julie in L.A., listening on KRLA. And Julie, you're going to stand up for female comedians or female comic writers.
To try. I think but the point I wanted to make is here's literally a quote that I heard from a friend of mine.
What do you mean? What do you say literally it's a quote? Don't you mean
here's a
it's
quote
just a quote?
From a showrunner, a male showrunner on a top 10 show. He said, "Bad news, guys. We got to hire a chick this year." And the other male writer said, "Well, is she hot?" So that's the...
Oh, my goodness. Well, that doesn't surprise me.
That's the problem we run into. And usually on a writing staff, there's either one token woman or a token minority woman. If you can find a minority woman, everybody's happy.
You got two bases covered then, right?
So whether or not the woman's funny is actually not even an issue.
Julie, what did you write for? You wrote for Third Rock?
I did write for Third Rock. Now I'm writing movies. I got out of TV altogether, so...
TV writing is depressing. It's depressing, don't you think?
Well, there are hardly any jobs anymore with reality shows, and the budgets have gotten cut in half, and most men just don't think women are funny, and when women try and be funny, they tend to act more like men. I think there is a way to be a funny woman without becoming a man, but I don't think a lot of female comedians have actually found that yet, so...
What do you think about Margaret? What do you think about Margaret Cho? I think she's horrific.
I actually just don't like... I'm not a fan of comedians that fall back on the same ethnic jokes over and over.
Yes! I love it. This is Julie. We got to keep in touch with Julie. You got to keep in touch with us. I want to hear about...
I'm a Republican Jew, by the way.
Forget it. You have every base covered. You're a Republican. You're Jewish. You're a female comedy writer, and we need more of you out there, Julie. Thanks for the call. 800-876-4123. When we come back, recap Kerry campaign theme song contest.
Glasses just aren't helping your eyes. I know that sounds harsh, but you probably know that from your own experience. Corrective lenses don't cure poor eyesight. In fact, our doctors believe they can create dependency and make bad vision worse. How many people do you know, including yourself, whose eyesight got weaker with every stronger prescription? The doctors who created the See Clearly method say that many people need stronger prescriptions year after year. Fortunately, there's a way to improve bad vision naturally, without drugs and without surgery. It's called the See Clearly method, and it's developed by Apollo award-winning optometrists. Pick up the phone and we'll send you a free video to see this program for yourself. Your eyesight is not going to get any better if you keep putting on those glasses. It's time you finally did something about it. Call right now for your free video to preview the See Clearly method. Call 1-800-428-7070. That's 1-800-428-7070. 1-800-428-7070.
A long-term study involving nearly 10,000 people suggests that exercise is the most powerful indicator of health and longevity. Hi, this is David Packham with NordicTrack, inviting you to make a long-term lifestyle change that will help you lose weight and keep it off. This week, NordicTrack has marked down our treadmills and ellipticals $200 to $700.
We're just beginning to fight here. These guys are the most crooked, lying group of people I've ever seen. It's scary.
Is he talking about the Clinton administration? What was he talking about there? Oh, he's talking about the Bush administration. Oh, I gotcha. Well, this, of course, broke yesterday, but it was front page news down here in Florida, and I look for a really clear exposition of what happened with this hateful comment by John Kerry. And is it really being written about in the New York Times? New York Times, you have to go to the jump page it's on page A23 of today's New York Times. A23. Listen to how it's written. The Unity Tour, and that's Kerry with Howard Dean, began on a day when Mr. Kerry denounced his Republican critics in unusually harsh terms during a conversation with supporters in Chicago when he apparently didn't realize he was still wearing a live microphone. Quote, these are the most crooked, lying group I've ever seen. It's scary, Mr. Kerry said, as his supporters urged him to, quote, tell it like it is and, quote, keep smiling. Mr. Kerry did not take questions from reporters, but David Wade, his spokesman, said the senator was referring to what he called, quote, the Republican attack machine, not to the Bush administration. And it goes on to talk about Mark Roscoe asking for Kerry's apology for this and saying it's unbecoming of a presidential candidate. So these ridiculous comments don't only make it page A23 in the New York Times. Imagine how this would have been covered if this were President Bush saying something similar about John Kerry. How about if he said, he didn't know the microphone was on, and he said, these people don't care about fighting terror. They wish Saddam were still in power. Imagine if he said that. What do you think the New York Times coverage would have been then? I want your views on this. I mean, I don't even think that Republicans should ask for an apology. Who cares? This is just what they are. I think it's important to show how the media doesn't play this and how the media does not focus on the absolute hypocrisy of someone like John Kerry, who's wailing and moaning just a few days ago that George Bush has made the tone in Washington worse since he's become president. Remember when he came into office, President Bush promised to change the tone of Washington, and the Democrats, including John Kerry, are saying it's only deteriorated under George Bush. Well, what does he call this? Why is John Kerry's bold exhortations about improving the tone of political discussion not in the New York Times today? And why is this lame, ridiculous excuse of, I was talking about the Republican attack machine? I mean, does anyone even believe that? Does anyone believe that? Well, apparently the New York Times does, because it didn't. That's all it did. It's just reported it straight, as if that explanation could in any possible way hold water. I mean, we were talking about this late yesterday, and we said, Matt and Lee and I were saying, there's no way they're going to cover this as, John Kerry becoming truly a nasty campaigner and saying things that are just outrageous, just for the sake of what? Whipping up a few politicians, I guess. So let's go to Seth, listening in Minneapolis on the Patriot. Hey, Seth.
Hi, Laura. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
I've got a good John Kerry theme song for you.
All right, good. Get laid on me.
Voices Kerry by Till Tuesday.
Voices Kerry. I don't even know that song.
I hate that song.
Hush, hush. Keep it down now. It's kind of like the right telling him to keep it down and
that's kind of the
point out the ineptitudes of presidency here.
Right. Okay. Till Tuesday. Voices Kerry. Seth, I don't think that's going to make the list. But hey, thanks for hey, keep them coming. Keep the theme song suggestions coming. Matt, do we have new ones for today?
Yes, we do.
I'm in a good mood. Let's lay on the new entry to the John Kerry campaign theme song contest. We're going to talk about this controversy of about the political ads that are being run by this left-wing media groups, and also CitizensUnited.org are running ads poking fun of John Kerry, and John McCain is urging the FEC to do something about this. Do we care? I say the more ads, the better. I don't care how many ads the left takes out. What I hate is campaign finance reform. That's what I hate. It's ridiculous. They should just let as many ads out there as possible, and who cares? I don't even care. Just we want to know who's putting the ads out and who's funding the ads and have full disclosure. And this whole campaign finance thing, we knew this was going to be a disaster. We're also going to talk to Byron York of National Review. He's going to join us. Does anyone, when you think about, let's say, spending money in Washington, where does that take you? It takes you on the pork watch. No one better than Senator Robert Big Byrd Spender knows how to send the pork home to West Virginia. Okay, from Wheeling to Charleston, this guy's name is on everything. Okay, he's brought so much money back to West Virginia. His name is on everything except public toilets. So it's always great when Robert Byrd goes on the Senate floor and is the one complaining about budget deficits.
The debate about budget deficits is taking place all across this country. Ironically, the one place where debate is discouraged on this matter is right here in this, the so-called greatest deliberative body in the world.
He is just...
Says who?
It says who? And also, why is this guy even talking about anything connected with spending? He loves spending, okay? He's one of the biggest spenders in the U.S. Senate. And the good thing, though, about Bobby Byrd is some of these complicated economic issues, you can boil it all down to the personal.
My wife and I are the proud possessors of two great-grandchildren just within the last month. Irma's and my great-grandchildren each owes $24,253.36.
That's all?
On the national debt.
Oh, whoop-de-doo. Oh, please. How long was he on the floor yesterday for?
About a half hour.
Oh, was there any scorpions? Was he?
No scorpions.
Was he throwing out any of the lingo about dippity-doo or whatever the heck he was talking about last time? Sliced bread? Well, it's no fun unless he goes back to the real stem winders. And that brings us to Bobby Byrd's big lie of the day.
Why don't you lie to me? Can't be trusted, good for nothing.
The only thing we know for sure at this point is that tax cuts over the past 3 years have contributed to an explosion in debt.
What a lie! The tax cuts are only kicking in this year. The bulk of the tax cuts hadn't even kicked in. Okay? So the reason that we have a deficit, the reason that we are looking at a deficit now instead of a surplus is because the economy was in the tank when Bush came into office. And so businesses weren't expanding. You didn't have the receipts from, all these big gains in the stock market. And the tax, I think this is how the left actually thinks. They think we can tax our way out of economic problems. And apparently that's what Robert Byrd believes. I mean, why are we surprised? Can you hear the fear? Left-wing radio. That's a new sound effect. I like that one. Left-wing radio. And the Left-Wing Radio Network is officially starting up at the end of March 31st. Now, it has I've got to say, I'm afraid, very afraid, because it has a stellar lineup of hosts. Al Frankenfraud.
I consider myself a nice guy.
Janine Garofalo. And rapper Chuck D.
Do you see the name of Franken Show? It's called the O'Franken Factor.
No, he was saying that. First of all, he was trying to be funny and say, it's called the O'Franken Factor. This guy can't do anything without trying to piggyback off the success of Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, and the entire Fox News channel. He does not exist without them. 800-876-4123, your healthy radio addiction. I always get them mixed up, Rosie and Roseanne. I still get them mixed up. It's
Roseanne
weird.
O'Donnell.
One likes men, one likes women, but they're both repulsive.
Jon Voight. Jon Voight on Scarborough Country on MSNBC. Sometimes Lee just brings it all into focus for me.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
President Kerry, that's scary. 800-876-4123. So he was saying they're a corrupt bunch of liars, but when he's on with Tim Russert, he's trying to portray himself as a kinder, gentler type of Democrat.
I believe that President Bush is a very likable fellow, and I respect. I think he's a good man who wants to do good things.
Likable or corrupt liars?
These guys are the most crooked, lying group of I've ever seen. It's
unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Let's go to Gary listening in L.A. on KRLA, our great new affiliate there. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Laura. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. Hey, I just find it funny that they buried this story on 823 in the New York Times. And the same thing happened to Bush in the last campaign. Didn't that make the front page?
WABC, New York.
The New Jersey Devils are the 2003 Stanley Cup champions.
This is New Jersey Devils hockey.
Gomez away from Dvorak. Gomez down the right wing boards in Edmonton Ice. Gomez, stop, shoot.
Hey, on the Laura Ingraham Show. Delighted you're with us. Webify at lauraingraham.com. Make sure to sign up for that weekly e-blast. It'll blast off, I guess, tomorrow. Oh, big shock. I have a sore throat again. Well, what is it with me and sore throats? I've got to go to a nutritionist. It must be something in my diet at this point, I've decided, because I get them and they're wicked. They're not just little scratchy throats. They're wicked sore throats that close your entire throat up. And you wake up in the morning and you just feel like you drank kerosene in the middle of the night. That's what it feels like. So I got to get this. I got to get it checked. We're going to talk to Lou Dobbs. He has been under blistering assault from the Wall Street Journal, and I would call them the elites on the Wall Street Journal editorial page, who, pretty much if it's good for American business, it's got to be good for the American people. And that's what the Wall Street Journal thinks. Lou Dobbs is asking a lot of tough questions about job losses in the United States, and the Wall Street Journal just wrote this piece about Lou Dobbs. It was one of the most vicious pieces I've ever read. Dan Henninger, who's written some great stuff for the Journal and is a smart guy, thinks that Dobbs, on everything from immigration, where he's on the same page as I am, that we need to make our immigration laws mean something. And on the issue of jobs, that we just at least have to have a conversation about what is happening to our manufacturing base, and if indeed everything is just getting rejiggered, so jobs which are inefficient to have in the United States are now going overseas. Well, let's have that conversation. Let's at least have a conversation about the facts and not just get caught up in heated political rhetoric. So we're going to talk to him about how he's weathering that storm. A new death penalty study is, we've been trying to talk about this issue for weeks, but Josh Markey, who's a prosecutor out in Oregon, and he's chairman of the Capital Litigation Committee of the National District Attorneys Association, he's actually here in New York, so we're going to talk to him about what he's learned about all of the charges about how the death penalty in the United States is racist and it's used disproportionately against African Americans instead of against white people. So we're going to talk to him about that. And we have a rarity coming into the studio here at WABC. We're broadcasting. We're going to talk to Vincent Gallo, who is a director, actor, writer, musician. I mean, he's kind of a everyman when it comes to entertainment. He also happens not to be a liberal, and Hollywood pretty much hates him for that. He did a film some years ago called Buffalo 66, which is an odd film. It has its moments, but it's odd. And he has a new film, which I don't think I'd like at all. But he has some dead-on interesting comments about life in Hollywood and how the hypocrisy of the Save the World crowd and Save the Planet crowd, it illustrates itself on a daily basis. So we're going to talk to him. So that should be fun. John Kerry yesterday, I mean, I got to say, this screaming about Florida and all of this stuff, and talking about how this time we're going to file legal actions in Florida ahead of time, like a preemptive legal strike in case votes aren't being counted. He was whipping up crowds all over Florida into a frenzy. But I'm thinking about this for a second. I'm thinking, no matter what you say about John Kerry, and you can say a lot about John Kerry, you got to hand this to him. He has a really upbeat message.
Everybody knows I'm bad news. Everywhere I go,
Farms, people
losing them. Workers, factories gone, outsourcing jobs. This president thinks it's good for America. I think we ought to be growing jobs in America and exporting products to other countries.
Very upbeat and positive. The sky is falling. The president has lifted us out of, with the help of course, the huge business community, but the president has absolutely committed himself to passing and getting past laws which make the operation of business easier in the United States by lowering the tax burden. And John Kerry, I mean, there's nothing ever anything positive happening in the economy for John Kerry. Nothing, zero. And what do you do when you have no agenda? I mean, John Kerry talks about outsourcing. We're going to talk about that issue with Lou Dobbs in just a moment. But what is his idea for stopping businesses from going overseas? We've talked about this a lot. He has no plan. I mean, some tax benefits for businesses. Businesses get plenty of tax benefits already. They're still leaving the United States. But when you don't have any agenda of your own, what do you do on the campaign trail? You got to fill up a lot of hours of the day, right? Well, you focus on an issue that really has a lot of impact on the lives of average Americans. What issue would that be? Well, like the amount of time the president is going to spend sitting down with the September 11th Commission.
This president's been stonewalling the effort of our own country to know what happened. They even tried to cut it off.
Yeah, let's cut you off. That's what we're trying to do. Cut you off at the knees. Well, it's no big surprise, of course, that John Kerry is grasping for straws here. And as we discussed yesterday, you could not pull Bill Clinton into a formal proceeding to get information out of him. I mean, we're still looking for those billing records. They would have to be levitated on the top of tables for us to get those billing records. And it's just ridiculous. But now suddenly, this dispute between the executive branch and the legislative branch about who should have what type of oversight and how the oversight should be constructed and what information Congress should be privy to. This is a time-honored tradition in Washington. This is nothing new that the White House wants to protect its communications from, the likes of, who do you think? What do you think Ted Kennedy will do with private intelligence briefing information? If Ted Kennedy and the usual suspects on the Democrat side of the aisle, what do you think they're going to do with that information? Because we know that they don't politicize the intelligence gathering process, right? Please. I'd be fighting for the ability to protect this information, too, if I were President Bush. But it's not a big surprise that John Kerry, yesterday, made absolutely no meaningful reference to the great news coming out of Iraq. And I'm talking about, of course, the signing of that interim constitution. And remember, for months, the naysayers said this was never going to happen. You have too many different groups there who have different ideas about the way the country should be governed in the future. It's just not going to happen. Well, Secretary of State Colin Powell gave us some much-needed perspective on just how significant this is.
Just imagine the impact that this document's going to have, not only in Iraq, but in that part of the world. The rights of all citizens, to include women. Committing this Arab nation to democracy, a free and independent judiciary, the military firmly under civilian control. It's democracy in action.
Now compare that. That's very positive, upbeat message. Forward-looking statements by Powell. Compare that with the negativity and cynicism from Senator Ketchup.
I did what was right to protect the security of the country, but I think George Bush abused that authority, and I have legitimacy to be able to hold him accountable for that.
You have legitimacy? What does that even mean? That's ridiculous. Powell shot down the critics.
Senator Kerry accepted it and spoke as if he believed it. And now, a year later, say the president was doing the wrong thing or he misled the nation, just isn't accurate. It isn't right.
Absolutely. And Sean Hannity, who snagged the big interview with Colin Powell, smartly played an old Al Gore clip for Powell to respond to.
It's very disturbing. I mean, Vice President Gore was in an administration that believed there were weapons of mass destruction to the extent that they bombed the facilities that they thought those weapons of mass destruction were in back in 1998. That was President Clinton and Vice President Gore. So to now scream that there's something wrong with the Bush administration because we finished the job as opposed to just have a 4-day bombing campaign and we've eliminated the problem forever, I think is incorrect.
It was terrific for Powell to speak directly to what the Democrats are saying because as we see in some of these polls today, President Bush, doesn't mean much at this point in the campaign, but President Bush trailing John Kerry by, some polls 5-6 points, other polls 8 points, other polls show a dead heat. But this is serious stuff now. It's time, issue by issue, to beat back what the Democrats are saying incorrectly about the war in Iraq and what happened in the ramp-up to the war in Iraq. They all had the same intelligence. They're all looking at the same information. And now you can look back and play the, hindsight is 20/20 game. But after September 11th, our country was looking at the world in an entirely new way. And now we go on the Culture Watch. Finally, I was looking for a shut up and sing moment of the day. Well, we have one.
People who need people. I think it's pretty scary that all houses of government, the White House, the judicial, the House of Representatives, the Senate, are all Republican, so that there are no checks and balances. And people have to think about the power and the abuse of power that comes with that.
What's the check and balance in Hollywood, okay? The one guy who tried to balance out Hollywood was vilified, which was Mel Gibson. Barbara Streisand, I love how she says all houses. She didn't know how many houses there were. All houses of government, the White House. Oh, she doesn't even know how to call it the executive branch. This woman is operating on like 3 brain cells. And then Babs felt the need to spout off, of course, on gay marriage, and that brings us to the very deep thought of the day.
Whether you're a heterosexual couple or, same-gender couple, everybody has the right to love and be loved. That's what's important, to strengthen families, whether they're gay families, heterosexual families. It's about
intersexual families,
and a sense
transgender
of
families. No. Where was she speaking, Maddie? Where was she?
At an HRC convention.
Human Rights Campaign?
Yep.
Did she perform, do you know? Did she actually sing, or was she just spouting off her usual political inanity?
God, I hope she didn't sing.
Oh, I've got to say that just when we thought that Barbara Streisand had sort of gone underground, didn't she lose that big legal battle with the photographers that wanted to take aerial shots of her place in Malibu?
She still hasn't paid the bill.
She still hasn't. What bill?
She owes the legal fees, and she hasn't paid them.
Oh, she owes legal fees to the other side. So
the photographers sued her.
She needs to cough up for that. But, just when we thought she had gone underground, she resurfaces. But I love that. All houses of government are Republican. That is classic Babs line. Coming up, Lou Dobbs, the conservatives of the Wall Street Journal editorial page and the neocons after Dobbs. What does that mean? Stay with us.
And how are you today, Mrs. Peppers? Have a liberal bias.
I find this very, very shocking.
Oh, I just lost my appetite.
Intelligence deals with the unclear.
It is not clear what is meant by indecency.
There's intelligence, and then there's intelligence.
That doesn't make any sense.
This is totally out of control.
We're trying to bring back the rules that have been in this country.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Oh, do we have a shut up and act moment for you? You are going to fall out of your car, off your chair, laughing when you hear what we're going to bring you. From actor Jon Voight. What was his last film? What was it, Anaconda? What was he in?
Yeah, I think Anaconda was one of his last. There have been some other beauties, too.
Oh, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, didn't his daughter give him some throwaway part for that? He's a very talented actor. But he's now mouthing off about The Passion on MSNBC, and it's hysterical. The Wall Street Journal editorial on secular absolutism. Who are the new aggressive forces in American cultural life? Are all those Christian people everywhere? No, it's the secularists. They're aggressive, and they're coming to a town or city near you. They want to take away your right to speak out on religious matters. And, of course, we have more Kerry campaign theme song entries. You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 800-876-4123, on the program 876-4123, and webified at lauraingraham.com. Oh, we also have some great news from Iraq. The Daily Telegraph headline, Saddam's old neighbors want to forget the fighting and find a job. That's not bad. People actually figuring out how to use the capitalist system to their benefit. And it turns out that now people are coming into all these places where they were afraid to go before in setting up small businesses. I'm still stunned at Dan Rather actually saying that enormous progress has been made in Iraq the other night from Baghdad. I mean, if Dan Rather is saying this, you know it's significant. And Scandinavian marriage is now being scorned as a model for the United States. What does that mean, Lee?
Well, it just means that they've been having
scorned as a model for U.S. It doesn't even make sense.
They've had gay marriage for some time, and basically what's happened is there's zero population growth now. That there's nobody having children. Marriage is an institution. It's just all about lifestyle and about the adults.
So why did you write Scandinavian marriage scorned as model for U.S.? What does that mean?
That was the headline of the Washington Times. I didn't write that headline. They did.
Well, why are you repeating it when it makes no sense?
It makes sense. Basically, it's saying Americans are scorning that model.
What is Lee doing? What has he been doing?
Americans are scorning that model. It doesn't work. That doesn't make sense about that.
Americans are scorning it.
Yeah.
Well, that's very upbeat and positive news. I love that.
Of course it is. That's what it said.
Fantastic. All right. Well, no, it's confusing. It was confusing when I looked at it.
That's
and
okay.
Teresa, well, you know little about what you write usually, so believe me, it's not saying anything. But everybody's been emailing in Kerry campaign theme song entries, and I don't know, are we going to ever cut this contest off, or is it going to just keep going? I mean, at some point, he's going to need the theme song to really hit the campaign trail with. So we got to send him our theme song, maybe one or two theme songs, and we'll just let him choose. But at some point we have to close out the contest, but not yet, because we're still getting a lot of good ones in. Now let's flash back for a moment. Remember, it was just a few days ago, maybe yesterday, I think he might have even said this, when John Kerry was bemoaning the nasty state of politics in Washington.
This president promised, I think this may be the only promise he's kept, that he would change the tone in Washington. And it's the worst it's ever been.
Okay, it was terrible, according to John Kerry. Well. So it's all George Bush's fault, right? The tone. George Bush promised to change the tone in Washington, but now the tone is worse. So in other words, saying it's all Bush's fault. This is what the Democrats have been saying. This is what Chuck Schumer's been saying. This is what Tom Daschle's been saying, as they continue to stonewall qualified judicial nominees. So Kerry was in Chicago today, and he was at a little meet and greet and did some remarks with some of the workers there. And, well, it reminds me of this old saying in broadcasting and campaigning: always speak as if you think the microphone is on.
Keep smiling. Oh, yeah, don't worry, man. Thank you. We're going to keep pounding, let me tell you. We're just beginning to fight here. These guys are the most crooked, lying group I've ever seen.
What? Isolate that, Matt. He obviously didn't even know he was on mic. Isolate that small part.
These guys are the most crooked, lying group I've ever seen.
Who is now changing the tone in Washington and making it worse? That's all I have to say. Who? Is it George
I have no
Bush?
idea.
Yeah, I have no idea. He is this is outrageous. And if no one in the media calls this guy to task for this, we are going to keep doing it on a daily basis. 800-876-4123. What do you think about that? John Kerry is moaning and groaning about how the tone in Washington in politics has gotten worse under George Bush, and he makes an offhand comment like that? Is that what we want in politics, just to make these comments?
These guys are the most crooked, lying group I've ever seen.
Think about it. This is a guy who is getting his advice from the likes of Ted Kennedy. Okay, lying and crooked group. There was nothing that Bill Clinton could do that was bad in John Kerry's eyes.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Is this guy nuts? Is he absolutely kidding me? Let's go to Dan, listening out in Boston on 96.9 FM Talk. Dan, you think this whole thing was planned?
I think it could have been, Laura.
Why?
Basically, I think what he could have done is, if you say something where you think you're talking off the record, you think that the microphone's not on, you're going to speak honestly and openly. And I think what he could have possibly done, and I think he's sneaky enough to do it, is to plan this and make it sound like, these guys are the most crooked people, and that's what he truly thinks and he believes, but he can kind of get off the hook a little bit by saying, well, I didn't realize the microphone was on.
I don't think so.
No?
John Kerry is so stilted. I mean, that would be That might be true if it were the Clintons. Actually, the Clintons are too smart. I don't think so, because it's not smart campaign strategy. No matter if you disagree with the president's policies, I don't think a majority of Americans think that George Bush is a crooked, corrupt person, okay? If the majority of the country doesn't think that Bill Clinton should have been convicted after he was impeached, then they're not going to believe that George Bush is a corrupt liar, okay? They might disagree with his policies. They might have big disagreements with him, but that's moveon.org language. That's not going to endear Kerry to the base, I'll tell you that. That was a stupid, stupid move. I want to know what your thoughts are. That's an interesting theory from Dan, but I don't think that's right. But I'm just thinking, this guy is campaigning everywhere with Ted Kennedy, right? Everywhere. And he's complaining that the Bush people are the most corrupt bunch of liars he'd ever seen. You know, come on! Yeah, listen to it again, though. He sounds like so nefarious. Let's hear it again.
These guys are the most crooked, lying group of I've ever seen.
I gotta say, this is one of the best things that's happened in weeks. This is fantastic. I love it. And let's just put aside, I want your comments on that comment. After, it's one thing if he says this is going to be a blood sport and this is going to be rough and tumble political season, I'm going to have the gloves off and, let's have the fight be really aggressive. That would be fine, right? And if it were Howard Dean, it would be fine, because that's what you'd expect from Dean. But this is after Kerry's whining and moaning about the politics, the tone of politics has gotten worse under George Bush. And it's just absolutely nauseating. Forget that, though. Put that aside for a moment. John Kerry, substance. What is the substance here? Well, he made it official today. He unveiled, and finally, we've been waiting for it, his economic stimulus package. Drum roll, please.
I'm going to ask America's wealthiest people, those making over $200,000 a year, to pay the same fair share that they paid under President Bill Clinton.
Wait a second. So what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? John Kerry thinks the way to grow our economy is to raise taxes. At least he admitted it. And I'm telling you something. A family living in certain parts of this country making $200,000 a year with 2 or 3 kids in school, in college, they're not feeling so rich these days, okay? Certainly not compared to Mr. $900 million man. So, but I just love it. So the Bush administration is a corrupt bunch of liars, and his plan is to raise your taxes. This guy is a total economic disaster. And they call President Bush simple-minded.
They never get around to explaining how higher taxes would help create a single job in America. Except maybe at the IRS.
I mean, that's a good line from Bush, actually. Someone should tell Kerry that at this point, with our economy expanding, the only thing we have to fear is fear-mongering itself.
George Bush thinks exporting our jobs is good economic policy. I believe that creating jobs here in America, keeping good jobs here, and exporting goods is good for our economy.
Can you say bumper sticker sloganeering? Wasn't Ted Kennedy out there yesterday or the day before saying we have to stop with the slogans? Please. The president today, it was almost like he was listening to John Kerry. He was getting briefed on what Kerry was saying. He was like one of those, remember those Rock'em Sock'em robots? Remember those? I never got those. Did you have a Rock'em Sock'em, Lee? I didn't have one.
I did not have one either.
We couldn't afford them. I think they were too expensive. And they weren't exactly the most feminine toys to play with anyway, but he was like one of those Rock'em Sock'em robots today. He was totally taking Kerry's head off.
Some politicians in Washington see this new challenge, yet they want to respond in old ways. Their agenda is to increase federal taxes, to build a wall around this country, and to isolate America from the rest of the world.
No, I don't support that.
Economic isolationism. We have a competitive global economy. I don't think John Kerry wants to become a protectionist. Everybody's concerned about if we lose jobs that are never replaced with new types of jobs, of course. But what is John Kerry's plan? I still haven't heard a plan aside from his idea that we need to raise taxes to grow the economy. I haven't heard one thing from him. When we come back, your phone calls, everyone wants to get in on this offhanded comment from John Kerry where he said, Matt, let's hear it again.
These guys are the most crooked, lying group of I've ever seen.
Apparently more crooked and more lying than Ted Kennedy and the Clinton administration. Oh, that takes some doing, doesn't it? 800-876-4123, and we come via bias in the New York Times. Did not think he was on mic. No way. No way. 800-876-4123, the Laura Ingraham Show. Delighted you're with us. Politics, the culture, everything else. Get on the website, lauraingraham.com, and you can get Shut Up and Sing autographed, which is pretty much the Bible for this program. If you want to understand my view on the elites versus the rest of us, then you got to get the book, and you'll die laughing because it's very amusing as well. And coming up, we have a Shut Up and Act alert, and you're not going to believe just how stupid some of these high-paid celebrities can be, but big shockaroo. Let's go to Chris listening in Hopewell Junction, which is absolutely beautiful. I lived in Princeton for a time, and I love Hopewell Junction. It's gorgeous. Hey, Chris.
It's lovely, but not as lovely as you.
How you doing? Thanks a lot.
I actually think that he did say it on purpose because, number one, he would have really cursed because he's effing this and effing that all the time. And number two, Howard Dean is supposedly about to endorse him. So isn't he trying to get, like, those younger voters from Dean's camp who talk like that all the time?
I don't know. I mean, I think he has those people. I mean, those people, they're all going to vote for Nader? I don't think so in the end. I think what he really needs to do is, at this point, Kerry's got to convince the country that he's going to lead the country and lead the country in a responsible direction. And when you have Ted Kennedy on the stump with you, you were high-fiving Bill Clinton for 8 years with everything that we know that he did and didn't do to fight terror and did and didn't do when he was, on the job. And he's saying these guys are corrupt. I don't think that helps him. I don't think that helps him where he needs help, which is in the South and in the flyover states. Yeah, you're right. It helps him with the MoveOn.org crowd, but that's about it. I think he has those people already. 800-876-4123 on the Laura Ingraham Show. Let's go to Jeff listening in Clinton, New Jersey. And Jeff says the media will not take Kerry to task on that, beyond caustic remark. No, Jeff, ye of little faith, Jeff. You don't think that Leslie Stahl and Terry Moran and Peter Jennings are going to really hammer Kerry for this?
Or Judy Woodruff.
Oh!
Please, there's no way. It's not going to show up in the mainstream media, and you're the only person, you and Mark Levin and Rush and those are the only ones that are going to carry it. You're not going to see it in the mainstream media.
Do you imagine, just for a moment, if George Bush had said something like this about John Kerry?
Please. Talk about a one-way street. No, he'd be the mongering guy,
right?
The horrible man for saying such a horrible thing.
What about the concern about dividing Americans? Right? It was 2 weeks ago. It was Kennedy and Kerry and Gephardt and Daschle talking about the administration that wants to divide Americans, divide rich from poor, black from white, gay from straight. The list goes on. What is John Kerry doing with this language? What the heck is he doing? And you're right, Jeff. They're not going to take him to task. Of course not. Let's go to Richard listening in Philly. Richard getting the big blowtorch signal from WABC. Hey, Richard.
Yes, actually, I'm in Hopewell Junction now, too. I'm moving on 95.
Oh, you are? You're driving fast. Good for you.
I do 290 on these roads. Don't tell anyone. Anyway, I'm sorry. I heard him on another radio show, Mr. Kerry, saying that he liked George Bush. And then he's calling him a crook. So, Mr. Kerry, did you ever have to make up your mind?
Yeah, is that your choice for the Kerry theme song?
Oh, definitely. It's the best.
Did you ever have to make up your mind?
This is pretty good. Like George Bush? Think George Bush is a corrupt liar? Think George Bush is nice? Think he's the dregs of politics? Gotta make up your mind, John. All right, Richard, that's just for you. Let's go to Penny in Norwalk, Connecticut, WABC, and we have a lot more Kerry campaign theme song entries coming as well. Penny.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I believe that the reputation, that this comment by Kerry may be well received by some people simply because, not because of George Bush himself, but because, unfortunately, the image that surrounds Cheney and Wolfowitz and Pearl and all these people that people do see as sinister. I don't believe that. I'm a conservative Republican. I vote for both of them. I think he's a fine guy. But I honestly think there's an image surrounding Cheney which will make people believe, and he can get away with saying something like this. Not about George Bush, but about the so-called group surrounding.
Yeah, but he didn't say Dick Cheney. He didn't say Paul Wolfowitz. He said these are the most crooked, lying group of people he's ever seen. So, yeah, I mean, Penny, you're right. Are there the 25% grassy knoll left who are floating every conspiracy theory out there? Of course, absolutely. But this kind of language is not going to, I think, play well over time. I think that's a short-term strategy, thinking that kind of rhetoric is going to get you mom and pop in the heartland. It ain't going to get you mom and pop in the heartland. And when we come back, George Tenet and Ted Kennedy on Capitol Hill, the New York Times. Well, how do you think they covered that? Fair? Think again.
A long-term study involving nearly 10,000 people suggests that exercise is the most powerful indicator of health and longevity. Hi, this is David Packham with NordicTrack, inviting you to make a long-term lifestyle change that will help you lose weight and keep it off. This week, NordicTrack has marked down our treadmills and ellipticals $200 to $700. Our prices start at just $5.99. This week, NordicTrack is also offering an additional $100 off our lowest sale price on any treadmill over $10.99. NordicTrack has beautiful, top-quality fitness apparel from featherweight running gear.
George Bush thinks exporting our jobs is good economic policy. I believe that creating jobs here in America, keeping good jobs here, and exporting goods is good for our economy.
No, haven't heard that before from John Kerry. That's original. Try to get beyond the bumper sticker, Senator Kerry, and actually offer us some concrete ideas about how you would make us more competitive in this global economy. We have an unemployment rate of 5.6%. It's significantly lower than any of our closest competitors. Do we need to do better? You better believe we do. But piling on more government regulation and taxes on businesses in this country is the last thing we should be doing. And we know, the Democrats love to complain about spending now. Suddenly now they're saying the deficit, the budget deficit. I mean, do you have any doubt where the budget deficit would be if John Kerry were the president? Of course you don't have any doubt. It's just, you gotta just push past this bumper sticker. And he's always leading with the bumper sticker when he's not making offhand comments when he thinks the mic is off. I love that. I still love that. They're most corrupt bunch of liars he's ever seen. That is just classic.
These guys are the most crooked, lying group of people I've ever seen.
I love it. This is just great. Let's go to Noreen listening out in Staten Island. Noreen on WABC. What's up, girl?
Okay, listen, Laura, I listened to Sean Hannity, and after that comment had happened, an ABC internet reporter was on the line with Sean, and another reporter in the audience kept answering on Kerry's spokespeople or whatever. The Kerry spokesperson said, oh no, he wasn't talking about the White House.
Please, he was so... That's a lie, Noreen, it's a lie. Of course they were talking about the White House. Look at how Fox introed this on the opening of the broadcast. They're covering up. You don't think that they were completely embarrassed?
Well, I know that he's lying like a rat. He blames...
He is lying after the fact, Noreen. They were trying to cover up for what was a huge gaffe. That's why they said that. I mean, duh. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Let's go to Dave, listening at WABC on Dutchess County, New York. Dave, welcome.
Hi, Laura. Listen, the liberals' favorite president isn't President Clinton. It's Jed Bartlett on West Wing. And there's an episode of West Wing where Bartlett does that exact thing. He makes a comment into an open mic, and you find out at the end of the show that he did it on purpose.
I don't think Kerry did this one on purpose, though. I really don't. He's a bad public speaker, in that his intonation is so fake and phony. That's why we say he sounds like Beldar the Conehead. We are from France. That's how he speaks. I am Beldar from the planet Remula. We come from France. Yeah, well, we come from France. Exactly. That's how he speaks, right? So if he's then going to pretend that he's speaking off mic he would not sound that natural. You know what I'm saying? There's no way that he planned that. I would bet my bottom dollar there's no way he planned that. That was a huge goof. Let's go to Chris, listening in New York on WABC. Chris, welcome. Hey, Chris, welcome. What happened to Chris?
I love your show.
Hey, thanks a lot.
I have your book. It's beautiful.
Oh, you're very nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
By the way, for Christmas, I spread them out. I bought 5 of them, and I gave them to all my liberal Democrat family friends who think that the media is so unbiased.
Oh, is that right? Oh, good. Yeah, spread the knowledge around. People have to learn and laugh about what the non-elites really think in this country.
Today I was listening to Sean Hannity's show, and
the only guy who has better hair than John Kerry is Sean.
And he got one of Kerry's representatives.
Yeah, this woman, Noreen, just called in and said that. Now they claim that it's a radio. They were talking about radio hosts. That's a total cover-up.
Yeah, because it was not. It was never stated, and even Sean said this sounds so fishy. It sounds like he put his tail over the fence for a minute, and now he wants to take it back and cover it up by aiming at the very people like you that are exposing these big gaping cracks in the Democratic or in the Liberal Party as a whole, and especially Kerry's all of his flaws, which are so obvious.
Excellent point. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Victor out in Franklin. Franklin, where are you, Victor?
I'm in Franklin Square.
Oh, all right. Welcome.
How are you doing? I'm a bit of an anomaly. I'm a liberal Republican. I'm far from conservative.
Yeah.
And anybody that knows me will tell you that. And I've never really even voted Democrat, but this election has me so aghast. It's incomprehensible. These guys, Kerry will be on both sides of what he said by tomorrow. He won't even know what he's talking about.
Flip-flopper. I mean, he's a complete flip-flopper. First of all, why are you a liberal Republican? What?
Well, I'm not really conservative. Is the problem?
Well, who did you vote for last election?
I voted for Bush.
So who are you going to vote for this election?
I'm voting for Bush. That's not the question. My ideology tends to lean towards liberalism.
Yeah, well, get rid of that. Liberalism has done nothing to keep America safe in the last 35 years. We run for Republican presidents, and since Reagan, and we'd still be dealing with the Soviet Union. So forget. I mean, the liberalism thing is just it hasn't worked. The only place it's working is in the federal courts, where they're making it up from the bench. Hey, I appreciate the call. Let's go to Bill, listening in Burton, New Jersey, on WABC. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, hi, Laura.
How you doing?
Not too bad for an older guy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Okay, good. The reason I called is because I'm really annoyed that Kerry would make a remark like that. He is the biggest liar there is. Talk about the Vietnam War. He calls it Nixon's war. I served in local government around that time, and I can remember the many condolences we had to give to families who lost boys during the Johnson administration, and that was a Democrat. He talks about Bush's service in the Air National Guard. Talks about him being AWOL or whatever. Nonsense. People underestimate Bush's service in the Air National Guard. He was a pilot. He was trained on an F-102. He took his life in his hands every time he went up in that plane. So Here.
The flip-flopper extraordinaire. And there was actually a great piece. I appreciate the call. Thanks for calling. A great piece in Time magazine, which I'm going to, if I have time, I'll get to later on, where they did an interview. Nancy Gibbs did an interview with Karen Tumulty, Nancy Gibbs, and one other reporter, and sat down with John Kerry. And when you really read the interview question by question, it is so obvious that this guy is trying to play all sides of an issue. He wants to say that Bush's policy of preemption is terrible, but then the next breath in this interview, he's saying, oh, well, I wouldn't, obviously it's our right to have to preempt other countries if we feel threatened. And then he wants to say that the Iraq War is a disaster, but then when he's asked, do you think it was a mistake? He'll say, well, we'll see. We can't say that yet. You know what I mean? So he's everywhere. And the way that they did the interview in Time magazine, I thought was terrific. I thought it was they did a great job. I promised I would get to this issue of the New York Times coverage of George Tenet's testimony on Capitol Hill yesterday before the Senate. I think it was the Senate Armed Services Committee. And on the Armed Services Committee is, of course, the senior balloon from Massachusetts, Hillary Clinton, who was actually, she was fine. She was actually fair, I thought. So it was Kennedy, Carl Levin, the guy with the glasses at the end of his nose from Michigan, can't he just get a regular pair of glasses? I mean, that prop is really getting old. So he's there, Kennedy, you got Tenet, and again, the same old territory. They're going over the same territory about, what the president did and what he said, and contrast that to what Tenet gave them, the analysis that the Intelligence Bureau gave the administration before the war in Iraq. And so the New York Times cover above the fold today first of all has a really goofy picture of George Tenet. He has his mouth all crooked. Then the title is CIA Chief Says He's Corrected Cheney Privately. Tenet also says meaning Cheney, acted on a misstatement by Bush on Iraq data. So they focus on these two really small pieces of information instead of focusing on the key money part of this testimony, which should have been leading the New York Times coverage. Let's listen.
He described it as a threat of unique urgency, a unique and urgent threat, a grave threat, and spoke of a mushroom cloud. Did you ever tell him, Mr. President, you're overstating the case? Did you ever tell Condoleezza Rice? Did you ever tell the Vice President that they're overstating the case? And if you didn't, why not?
I engaged with them every day. If there are areas where I thought someone said something they shouldn't say, I talked to them about it.
Well, he talked to them about it, so isn't that what we should be encouraging? Now listen to the next soundbite, because the last part of this soundbite, where Tenet is trying to answer Ted Kennedy, this was the lead, believe it or not, and I think it was the Washington Post today. Now, the New York Times, you have to go to the jump page, the third paragraph from the end of the story to learn this.
You can't have it both ways, can you, Mr. Tenet? You can't, on the one hand, just say, look, we never said the war was imminent, and then have these superheated dialogue and rhetoric, which are semantically the same as imminent. Do you believe the administration then misrepresented the facts to justify the war?
No, sir, I don't.
No, sir, I don't. Third paragraph from the end of the New York Times story is where they bury that information. Mr. Kerry asked Mr. Tenet if he believed the administration had misrepresented information about Iraq to justify the war, to which Mr. Tenet responded, no, sir, I don't. And I've got to tell you something. Everybody who follows this, and most Americans, I think, when they sit back and think this through, gathering intelligence is not a science. You have to make the assessments as time goes on, given the full context of information that we knew about Saddam the man, what he had done in the past, what he had not done to come clean with the inspectors. Given everything that we knew, and frankly, everything that we couldn't find answers to, what then was the right thing to do for this administration? Well, the administration had to make a judgment call. And if you listen to Tenet's testimony yesterday, he continued to try to get that point across to the likes of Ted Kennedy. But the only thing they could focus on was Dick Cheney was still out there talking about the biological mobile labs, and why was he doing that? And Tenet said, well, I actually talked to him about that, or I'm not talking about that, and that's incorrect. And I had that discussion with him. So instead of having a conversation at these committee hearings that are actually helpful to the American people so we can learn about how we can improve intelligence in the future, all it is political grandstanding. And Fox News is the only news organization that reminded Americans that just a year ago, Ted Kennedy was out there saying this.
I want to join with those that recognizes the great danger of Saddam Hussein and commends the president for going to the United Nations to try and find out a way of dealing with these weapons of mass destruction. And clearly there are risks if we take no action.
The risk if we take no action. Where is that in the New York Times coverage? Where is it? Where's Ted Kennedy holding him to account? It's not there. Big shock. 800-876-4123 on the Laura Ingraham Show. A lot more to get to. Don't even think about touching that dial.
They assess risk. They put urgency behind it, and sometimes it doesn't uniquely comport with every word of an intelligence assessment.
Well, Director, I'm not talking about parsing words.
Oh, no.
I understand that. We're talking about words that are basically warmongering.
Warmongering. Oh, let's not use slogans. Let's not have a bumper sticker mentality. Back on the Laura Ingraham Show coming up, Shut Up and Act. Moment of the day. Well, many moments. Maybe we should give everyone a taste of this. Do you think? Yeah, let's give everybody a taste of this. Jon Voight, actor, who, oh well, let's go to Voight 5. He was on with Joe Scarborough on Scarborough Country on MSNBC, and Scarborough's show has gotten a lot. I've got to say, we were pretty tough on it. It's gotten a lot better. He's gotten some great guests. And Jon Voight, who, we can't even figure out what he's been in lately. I guess he was in Runaway Train, like back in, when was that?
That was 85.
Midnight Cowboy. Coming Home. Well, he won the Oscar for that. He's a great actor, let's face it. But he's compelled to speak out against Mel Gibson, and he's just absolutely stating, without any qualification, that Mel Gibson's film is just igniting anti-Semitism everywhere. Let's listen.
As I've said, I think that there are the ingredients of a return to bigotry and anti-Semitism here, and they're planted very clearly. And if I speak out against it, and I call for, if I ask people all people to understand that all people who understand the true meaning of Christ and
tell
love
us about it, John.
to reject this film, because it's certainly a new torch of anti-Semitism.
No, I can't hear
this.
this.
A person who is, trying to stop a train with a stick. But that's what I feel.
His brain sounds like it's on a stick. What is he even talking about? We're going to get to more of that. And it's just he's saying what so many of the Hollywood elite want to say. I mean, he is saying that. Let's go to Jim, listening in Garwood, New Jersey. WABC, that Kerry off the mic comment. And Jim, you're making the point that, remember Cheney when he was just raked over the coals for he made a reference to a particular reporter, remember?
Him and George Bush, I guess they were on a campaign trail at one point, or at some meeting somewhere in the past. But just to note again, the double standard in the media, where that really got played off by them. But today with Curry, you don't hear anything, and you probably won't except for your show.
Absolutely, absolutely, Jim. And it was Dick Cheney calling a New York Times reporter a blank. I won't say what it is, but he said he's a blank. And he got raked over the coals in the media for at least a few days. But John Kerry's going to get a total pass on this. Oh, after all, he was only talking about right-wing radio hosts, right? Oh, you don't believe that.
Time for some other conservative talk shows.
We try to make it entertaining. We use more music. We do more culture segments. So, given everything that we've been doing, from the Kerry campaign theme song contest to the conversations about confirmation gridlock on the judiciary, outsourcing, then our conclusion that John Kerry sounds like a particular character from Saturday Night Live. Is that just pushing the envelope in a bad way on this election year?
I am here to join you to change America for the better.
I am Eldar, the first timekeeper from the planet Remulac.
Maybe I am just juvenile, and maybe I just like to smile and laugh.